and I'm going to give them a few minutes to introduce themselves shortly. But first, today, so we're talking about over-the-counter eye drops. There is so much to talk about that I want to put a little bit more framing around this than I usually do before we dive into intros and discussions. Over-the-counter or non-prescription drops are an almost universal need for people with dry eye, regardless of what our diagnoses are or our histories or what other treatments we're on. There are a few exceptions. I know some people who are using, for example, entirely autologous serum drops. Those are the ones made from your blood as their lubricant and not using any kind of over-the-counter drops. But I would say the vast majority of people who've got moderate to severe dry eye at some point, and sometimes very frequently, are using some kind of lubricants in their eyes. But what kind of lubricants are we talking about? And this is where it can get confusing. So just a quick word about the types. So there's a whole spectrum of types of drops, setting aside things like ingredients, but just kind of the form of them that they're sold in. So we've got conventional drops, squeeze it out of a bottle or a vial. We've got gel drops, which are generally in the same format. They'll be in a bottle or a vial, but they'll be thicker. Then there's actual gels, which are in a tube, but they're made of similar ingredients as the drops and the gel drops, just a higher concentration. So they're very thick, but they're not greasy or anything. They will fully evaporate just like drops do. And then the most viscous or thickest end of the spectrum is the ointments, which are kind of glorified Vaseline in a tube. They're the greasy ones from petrolatum and mineral oil. So those are all types of lubricant drops. Then there are other over-the-counter drops. We're not going to get a whole lot into those today, but we will definitely touch on them because I think they're all at some point relevant to a lot of people who have dry eye. And those would be allergy drops and redness relievers. And now there's this huge collection, very confusing collection out there of combo drops where you can go on some of these manufacturers' websites and you pick your symptoms and pick the drop. So it might be for redness, might be for irritation, dryness, allergy, a number of different things. And those ones have some definite risks to them, to navigating them and making sure you're getting the ones that are safest for your eyes. So that's all different types of drops. Then we've got packaging, which is definitely an evolving world right now. We've got conventional eye drop bottles that are usually like 15 mil size. Some of them are smaller these days, and those have preservatives. Some preservatives are worse than other preservatives, but at any rate, they've all got preservatives. Then we got the preservative-free vials, which I would say all of us are familiar with. And those vary a fair amount too. There are some that have more contents than others. Some of them have almost double what the kind of smallest ones have. Some of them are designed or seem to be designed in a way that you can recap them where others can't be. Then we've got preservative-free multi-dose vials, which are kind of the trend of the future. And there've been a couple of those on the US market for quite a while. Oasis Tears multi-dose, I think a lot of you are probably familiar with. That's been around the longest and is quite a good one. Fresh Coats in that format too, but now finally some of the major manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies, are coming out with preservative-free multi-dose packaging. Those are for those of you that aren't familiar, it's a different shaped bottle. It's flat on the top. It's a little bit harder to use, and they're designed in such a way that they can't suck anything back in after you squeeze, because if it's preservative free, you just don't want the contents getting contaminated. There's another one from OcuSoft called Retain HPMC that is in a very different style. It's pointy rather than flat on the top, like a lot of the European ones. But those, both for economic reasons and trying to not create so much plastic landfill, they're pretty popular these days, and I've been happy to see more brands of them come out. Allergan and Alcon both have new ones of those out recently. Okay, a couple other topics that we're gonna be getting into are just issues for using dry eye drops. How do we choose them? Are we getting a recommendation from our doctor? Are we getting free samples to try out first? Are we price shopping and it's whatever I can get the most of at Costco for the least? Are we shopping ingredients? Are we shopping by brand? There's just a lot of different ways to work our way around the drops. One word I just want to put out there so I don't forget later on is always remember there can be lots of different things from the same brand. So just because you tried one of them and didn't like it doesn't mean none of the others under that brand name will work. Case in point is Allergy, where they have refresh everything, right? I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I've tried refresh or I've tried sustain, but there's like 12 different versions of refresh, and some of them have completely different ingredient bases than others. So trying one doesn't mean you've kind of ruled out the whole brand. Let's see what else. Then we've got usage issues on drops, and how frequently are we using them? So for some people, it's a few times a day. For some people, it's every 20 minutes. Some people's doctors are recommending that they use them constantly. Some people's doctors are recommending against using them constantly. Some people are trying to use things like moisture chamber glasses to reduce their need for such frequent usage. Then there's what's driving the use of it. Is it a medical thing? Is it because we've got severe aqueous deficient dry eye and our corneas will become unhealthy if we're not lubricating them enough? Or is it because we're so uncomfortable? And I would venture to say that an awful lot of eye drop usage is driven more by comfort management, which is a very legitimate need. I'm not suggesting it isn't, but it's more about comfort than about actual lubrication. Our eyes feel more comfortable when they're wet. That doesn't mean our eyes are exceedingly dry. This is, we're all in kind of different situations. One more usage issue is, are we doing it reactively or preventively? Are we getting ahead of our dropping needs, or are we waiting for it to build up till we can't stand it and then putting drops in? And what works best for whom? So those are some of the topics that are going to come up today about drops. Let's see, one last thing before I have everybody introduce themselves. Aiden's got some resources in the chat. Let's see.
I'll put those in now. I just sent it to the panelists earlier, but I'll send that link now.
Got it. Thanks. Could you add the one about back in there?
Yep.
That's well, that'd be great. Thanks. Okay, time for introductions here. It's going to be our usual. We've got some questions to answer. Let's see. I think I will just go first. I'm in Washington State. I am drinking kombucha today. I've had dry eye for about 20 years. And where am I at in my dry eye journey? I'm in revolt and denial right now. After all this time, I'm trying my darndest to avoid and ignore the things that I should be dealing with. So that's my honest answer to that one. I haven't used many eye drops lately, but I've got a vial of neutrophil, which I use for filling my sclerals. I tend to have one of these open in front of my computer all the time to kind of douse my eyes during the day. Let's see, Nancy, can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Nancy Pollock, and I live in south of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I've had dry eyes for, I've lost count, 20 plus years. Yeah. So, and I've tried everything, every eye mask out there, every drop out there, every ointment out there. Yeah. Tried it all.
So where are you at in your journey? Could you just briefly describe what's
I've had, right now I'm trying Regina Eye, which is quite expensive. It's not covered by insurance. I've tried the Vital Tears, the serum eye drops, and that I like those, but my doctor Duke wouldn't give me but 20%. My doctor here wants me to try 40%, but for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time getting his office to be proactive in getting the prescription for me to go get my blood drawn. And so, and I'm coming up on bad allergy season, which for me, and I'm trying not to take like Zyrtec. I'm using nasal sprays, like Flonase during the day, because all of that makes my eyes dry out even more. So it's like a vicious cycle this time of year. It's, no good answer. I catch myself just being a hermit in the house, but like it's real windy here today. rained all day yesterday. It's windy and cold here today. But it's a challenge. And I have eye drops everywhere I go. My purse, my desk, my bathroom, my refrigerator. I've got it all.
So just briefly, Nancy, setting aside kind of things you've tried, when you talk about having had dry eye for 20 years, where are you now in relation to that? Are you better than you were 10 years ago? Are you worse than you were? Where are you kind of at in the journey?
Well, for a long time, back before COVID, I was a flight attendant and I was always flying to Europe. And the more I'd been flying to Europe for probably the last 15 years. And the more I flew, the longer the flights, the drier my eyes. And so, and that, of course, and I have what they call a slow blink on my right eye, which affected it too. And lack of sleep. And I guess it progressively got worse. Mm-hmm. And I tried a big drug last summer called Oxivate, which did help. So I'm just I'm toying with maybe not using a ointment at night and just using Celluvisc. I've tried every patch known to man. So I would say it's actually gotten worse as I've gotten older. I don't know. I was hoping it would get better, but it hasn't. But
you're not flying now, right?
No, I'm off work until November of 2022.
Wow. Okay. Have your eyes been, I'm going to move on in a second, but have your eyes been better since stopping flying?
No.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Gosh, that's a bummer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, your turn. Thank you,
My
Nancy.
turn. Okay, I'm a lot like Nancy. I've had dry eye going on 40 years. Progressively got worse. My long distance vision was so bad I had RK surgery in the 90s, and that kicked it off into another level of badness. Of course, I used every drop I could get on the market. Visine A was my choice for a long, long time. And then about 10 years ago, I had cataract surgery, and that just blew the whole issue up, and it got really bad to where I finally gave in to wanting to use scleral lenses to put a nice little bath around my cornea. That seemed to work okay. I had a couple more surgeries right before that to correct my cornea, and now without the sclerals in, I have 20/20 vision, but I still have dry eye because of oil problems and teardrop problems. Right now I'm trying to use really wet contact lenses, but I still need the drops. Like Nancy, I have drops all over the place. Preservative free, carbomethyl cellulose, whatever it is, carbomoxyl, I can't even say it. That's my favorite. And in fact, that's what the new contact lenses come in. And I get it from Walmart. It's really cheap, and it comes in these little preservative free dosages, and my eyes are good with today. I had punctal plugs put in to keep my tears in my eyes. I've been using these little Equate drops to keep my soft contacts liquid, and I'm doing okay. Overall, I'm starting to do okay. The more attention I give to it and not sit back and wait for it to get worse seems to be getting better. So there is hope on the horizon. Now, a lot of people have given up hope. I have through the years, but don't give up. Don't give up.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. All right, over to you, Mandy.
Looks like you're muted.
Hello, everyone. So I've been here several times. I realize I'm too hot today. But hi, everyone. So I've had trouble, Rebecca and Aiden. I was just out in Washington State visiting my family, and I was going to try to get over to visit you guys, but my cousin or my nieces took up all my time. I babysat them. I was exhausted, and I am now having trouble catching up on sleep. I don't know how parents do it. I just don't know. So anyway, I live in Madison, hence the cow, and that's the isthmus behind me. I'm drinking water and red wine. I realized I poured this really full because that was what was left in the bottle and I was in a hurry. Nice. Thank you. I'm usually, like I always say, I'm usually one of the only ones drinking, but I am from Wisconsin, right?
Well, it's 6:20 on the East Coast. It's happy hour.
That's right. It's 5:20 here. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yep.
So, what's next? How long have I had it? 24 years, since I was 19. Where am I in my journey? It ebbs and flows. I have really fixation issues. So I have to take, if I don't think about it, I'm okay. But I have this weird, I know a lot of people have a lot of clogged glands. I have mostly aqueous deficient. And when there's a clogged gland, I feel like I need to unclog it. And I have this problem that my eye doctors are like, stop doing it. And then I'm like, what's going to happen years down the road? So a lot of people, I'm sure, fixate on their eyes, and you're not alone, and 24 years into the journey, but that also ebbs and flows. I love the carboxymethyl cellulose, sodium, whatever, too. Those are my favorite. And I have tried every kind of drop on the block. I'm also using Regenerize right now. Holy cow, it's expensive, but I'm trying it. I just try things. I want to try things if my doctors will allow me and think that it's good for me. I have a doctor that I really trust, that I talk to about those things, and he said, give it a shot. Give it 3 months, the full percent, and just use it 4 times a day. And yes, it's expensive, but hey, we're all getting that money from the federal government right now, right? So, well, I'm part of the 1%. I work for the state, so
Yeah.
we make a whole lot of money. Anyway, so
How long have you been to Regenize?
I've been doing that for about a month now. And
Not 2 weeks for me.
2 weeks? Okay.
Mhm.
So I have some nerve issues, and that is one of the reasons my doctor thought that would be good. I take other things to help with the nerve issues in general, like I take anti-anxiety meds. I know a lot of people are afraid to use those because of the chance of it making the dry eyes worse, but it really helps me in not fixating and really having just a better quality of life because I'm not fixating all the time. I take gabapentin. I also have severe migraines, but the gabapentin helps with this nerve tingling that I have. And then when that gets really bad, I also take benzodiazepine. So not recommending all of these, but there are things that I've learned definitely help me cope in certain ways and make my life better. I also have not punctal plugs, but I have all of my ducts cauterized. Like I said, I'm mostly aqueous deficient. So eventually I was just sick of playing with plugs and they were irritating. And I was like, just go for it. My doctor, I know there's conflicting ideas about this, but my doctor did say usually after 10 years, they will open up themselves or it is reversible. Some doctors say it's not. So I was like, go for it. So I also wear a lot of moisture chamber glasses. I'm just talking in general where I am in my journey because I love outdoor sports. I love being outside. I love gardening. And it's going to be 55 in Wisconsin tomorrow. Woo-hoo. So I am outside all the time and I live in my moisture chamber glasses. I even live with them inside. I have clear prescription ones. I'm not wearing them right now because I felt like I looked horrible otherwise. I didn't need to add those, but I actually don't care. I wore my sunglasses, moisture chamber glasses on my plane ride to and from Seattle and left them on in the airport. And even it was like midnight, I didn't care. It's just like, whatever. So anything to help. So that's where I am in my journey. Drops I use.
Great.
Refresh Plus, Refresh Cellulose at night. Although I don't love this because of all the crustiness it leaves, like that I almost find more irritating. So I'm playing around with some new things at night, like using this Retain PM, which doesn't have the lanolin. Is that what it is? So actually what I do is just put it on my eyelid and around the eye, not directly in the eye, because I have like aqueous deficiency so much that it has trouble like rinsing it out, and then they feel worse. So I'm gonna put it around my eye, and I've been putting Refresh Plus on, sleeping with the moisture chamber goggles at night. So that's kind of where I am. Like Rebecca, sometimes I'm in denial, and I also am just like, this is my life and I have to deal with it. So figuring it out.
All right. Thanks, Mandy. Did I mention Mandy's on our board at the foundation too?
And she talks a lot. Did you mention that?
And you said you were drinking water, and I was like, wait, what? I'm missing it.
Well, it's early out there. It's not 5 o'clock yet, is it?
All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into our discussion. So we got a number of questions to tackle. A couple of them we're going to try to keep pretty brief. Some of them we're really going to get more discussion going on them, I think. First of all, just very simply, how often are we dropping? How many times a day are you using some kind of over-the-counter drop? I would probably just leave out, gooping up for the night if you're putting stuff in overnight, but just throughout the day. How many times? Nancy?
Oh, 8 minimum. Yeah.
Mark?
12 to 24, maybe.
Yeah.
Mandy? Unmute yourself.
I'm probably around the 12 to 24 range as well, with all the different drops. Oh, I also use Restasis in the morning and at night. I don't know. I think that one's psychological. I've been using it since 2002, and I just keep using it. I don't know how much it actually helps. But one thing I just thought of, everyone was saying you have drops laying everywhere. And I just found 2 drops on my desk. And lately I've been like, because I'm at home, I'm like, which one did I open yesterday? Which one did I open today? And my family's like, can you just put them in one place and get rid of them, or throw them away when you're done? So I just put this little clip on this, and this is going to be my new thing, or something like that. So I know which one I'm using, and I don't use them all. Anyway, I just thought of that. But
yeah, I use Sequa also. I forgot that.
Yeah, today we're really going over entirely.
Me too.
Over the counter rather than
yeah, over the counter. Sorry.
All right. So about that thing, having vials everywhere, having bottles everywhere. This time of the year, I'd like to remind everybody, do some spring cleaning with your eye drops. Get rid of the old expired junk. I mean, there's just no way we have all this stuff around without having some expired ones, some ones that have been open for we don't know how long. Time to clean up. Go through your drawers, your suitcases, your purse, your under the cupboard in the bathroom. It's a good time of year to clean up. Okay, next question. How many different kinds of over-the-counter lubricant drops, gels, ointments, anything in the lubricant category have you used? And I want to count, if you can manage to count them, and you might want to use like our drop listing, the one that Aiden posted first, I think. Go not just by brand, but by the individual one. Because like I said, there's 1,000 refreshes and sustains. So I'd love to know how many different things you guys have tried. Nancy, can you ballpark it for you?
I've got 5 sitting on my kitchen counter here that are strictly over the counter, and that's the most recent.
So those are all current.
Yeah, those are all.
But over your 20-year span was it?
Oh, I've lost count. Anything that comes out, I've tried. Every time I go to the eye doctor, I beg for samples of anything they've got, and so I do whatever I can. But it gets expensive when you start buying all this. So, and I try to save up for coupons as best I can. But it's not always easy. And then I get to Europe and I buy whatever they have over there too. And that I'm obviously not going there right now.
They have some good ones that are.
Yes, they do. I
Yeah.
really like the Evo Tears, but I can't get it over here.
Yeah, they're regulated differently over there. It's, yeah, we kind of need an overhaul of how the FDA is looking at over-the-counter drops these days. Mark, how about you? You have a
Oh,
long history
but-
there. There's surely a lot of stuff you've tried.
Visine A, which is the glycerin and that Vaseline that you can get all by itself, hydrochloride. A lot of people use that. I've used Lumify, which is prescription brimonidine. The Lumify really works good to get the redness out. And of course, my favorite is the Restore Plus lubricant eye drops, a lot like the Refresh Plus. It's the Walmart variety, which is about a lot less, and that's the carboxymethyl cellulose, which is probably my favorite, and I think Mandy's favorite.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. So
and I'm using that glycerin in the preservative-free new containers where you have to really squeeze it, and I kind of like that too.
Mhm.
Which
Like
brand
that.
is that, Mark, of the glycerin?
What's that?
Which brand is that of the glycerin that
Oh, it's
you're
right here.
using?
Hold on. Hold on.
Sorry.
Oasis and Refresh Relieva are both glycerin based. There might be another one or two out there.
Yeah.
Just want to mention the Visine A and the Lumify are both redness relievers. Those are not lubricants, although they may contain lubricants. So that's another category.
I thought those had preservatives in them.
That too.
Yeah.
Oh, Refresh
good.
Relieva, yep. And
Relieva.
that one, so they brought that out, is it like, I want to say a year and a half now, something like that. So they brought it out in the bottle, and I was really excited when that one came out because it was first time one of the major brands was in a preservative-free multi-dose bottle, right? But now they've been going on kind of chronic back order lately, and Allergan's brought out an individual vials version of it. So I'm a little bit worried about where that one's headed. I hope they keep that one in production because I think those are important. Okay, any other ones you've kind of tried over the years or recently, Mark?
Oh, that's the main characters for me.
All right.
So, I mean, I have the Restasis, the prescription Zydras and all that, but
Mhm.
over the counters, those are the main ones.
Gotcha. Okay. Mandy.
I don't know if it's accurate, but since I've had this since I was 19, I think I counted like 32 on the list of all the different like variations. Yeah, and I have gone back to my same old. I found that the Refresh Plus, the carboxymethyl cellulose,
CMC.
that in TheraTears. So TheraTears and Refresh have both of those in there. It looks like, anyway, but I can't handle like a lot of other, sometimes the glycerin makes my eyes feel weird. I've used Retain some that I like, and Retain MGG sometimes, but it's all the oils just seem to make my eyes feel not so great. So I keep coming back, but I also have tried all of the ones, although I haven't bought them in Europe, I just buy them on Amazon, like all the ones from overseas or from like a pharmacy that will ship to the US. And I've tried all of those too. And just like the Oasis, I think a lot of the brands over there have a similar active ingredient, right? Is that right, Rebecca? As
The sodium hyaluronate.
Oh, the sodium hyaluron. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've tried some of those, and those just, I know some people love that, and it just doesn't seem to do it for me. So go back to the basics, and sometimes that's the best to do. Sometimes you try too many things, throw too many things at the kitchen sink, and then you're just like, oh, I don't know what's working, what's causing my eyes to have problems. And, you know, it's good to kind of narrow that down.
At the end of the day, I mean, it's a little different when there's like severe aqueous deficiency, because what you put on the eye and how much of it does matter more, right? But
Can't wash it away.
yeah, for a lot of us, it's standard quality of life, isn't it? You use what makes you feel comfortable more of the time, because you have more functional vision more of the time when you're comfortable and can see comfortably. That's really what matters. So balancing eye health with comfort, which comfort is really the goal where most of us are headed for. So let's get into more details on how you pick a drop, the different factors that go into that. Not necessarily how you reject a drop, but literally how you get started on a new drop. Nancy, what's your take on that?
Basically, anything that comes out new that I've not tried that's preservative free, I will buy it. And it was funny because when I was flying to Europe, it was almost like that was my favorite thing to do. Go to the pharmacies over there, and what have you got for, if I can, communicate with them, I would try anything they had for dry eyes. And a lot of times I end up throwing stuff out, but you never know. So, but yeah, I pretty much anything that I keep a watch on it, and anything new coming out, I try it. I'm always looking in the dry eye section at the pharmacy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I just want to comment on this. There's new and there's new. There
Yeah.
are new formulations and there's new marketing.
That's
We
it.
got old things repackaged. Case in point, not to make anybody at Allergan angry, but Refresh Digital is Refresh Optive Advanced in fresh packaging. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just,
yeah, they just gave me a sample of that at the eye doctor the other
Uh-huh.
week. Yeah. I haven't tried it yet, but I've got it. I have a question. Yeah. What is,
I'm not dissing it, it's just different packaging. That's all.
okay. What's everybody using for allergy eyes? That's what I'm struggling with this time of year more than anything, where no matter what I do, some of the drops I'm on burn anyway, but then you add the itchiness from the allergies. It's like, ugh.
Absolutely.
So,
We're gonna get to that one in a few minutes here.
Okay.
We'll circle back to allergy and redness relievers in a few minutes.
Okay.
Mark, if you try something new, what would make you try something else other than what you're using? How do you choose something? Can you unmute? Mark, you're muted. Mark, you're muted.
I'm more of a prescription guy for anything that's new, because I, like the other panelists, I've tried almost everything that's on the shelves. I'm reluctant to try anything more because I found a few things that I like, and I'm like, Mandy, I'm going to stick with them. But as far as new prescriptions, I'm into all the new science that comes out.
Got it. Okay, so you're not going to be trying a lot of new OTC things.
No.
All right, Mandy.
I'm having trouble unmuting. Okay, so, oh, you muted me. Thanks, Aiden. So for a long time, I would just try random eye drops. I mean, I had my basics that I knew that would work, and then I would try eye drops. And then I would, a few years later, be like, oh, maybe that'll work for me now. And then I'd buy them again. And leaving prescription aside, this is just OTC, I started looking at the ingredients in them and seeing which ones agreed with my eyes and which one didn't, what is the main ingredient in the eye drop. And again, found that word that we're having fun trying to say, the carbomethyl.
CMC.
Yeah.
CMC for short.
CMC, that's the one that I feel like works best for me. So Aiden is gonna whip this out later, so I don't know if I want to steal his thunder.
Go for it. It's yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the board meetings we were talking, and I was like, how much money do we probably throw away on trying drops that we've already tried and we know don't work for us and hope that they'll work again? So we are designing a very simple spreadsheet that you can put down the drops that you're trying. You can either look at the ingredients or not look at the ingredients, probably almost not look at the ingredients so you don't have like some sort of bias against it. Try it for a few weeks because you it might take your eye a little bit to adjust, and just take notes on whether or not it works. And then when you're done with this experiment, look back at the ingredients, see which ones work. And I bet it's going to be ones that have similar ingredients, the ones that your eyes really like. That's my guess. That's my theory. I don't know. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. But I'd love for all of you to try it once we get that spreadsheet out there to you. So that's how, I guess that's how I choose, but I also will still try anything new. Thinking, oh, maybe this percentage of the main ingredient and whatever's in the inactive ingredients, maybe it'll work better. But I'm starting to realize my eyes like a certain thing, and that's going to save me money in the long run.
It's smart.
Insanity.
When you find what works, and we stick with that and we circle back to it with the occasional nod to the new things that come out. Not that we've seen a whole lot of dramatic new things on the US market in lubricants. We really haven't. We just keep seeing these slightly warmed over versions of old things. It's like
the rebranding is insane.
Trilogy. It's yeah. So there's not a whole lot of innovation. I mean, I think there was the whole thing about starting to put oils in drops. And so we got Sustained Balance, which is still not available preservative free, which just is crazy making to me. Retain MGD I know is pretty popular because of the oil in it. The sodium hyaluronate drops are kind of probably one of the most current trends, although they've been here for a really long time. But the major pharmaceuticals are finally in the US are finally starting to come up with their versions of things with sodium hyaluronate, which is really hard for consumers to figure out because I mentioned about regulatory issues a little earlier. Sodium hyaluronate is a really common ingredient in kind of the higher end drops in Europe, but in the US, the FDA will not allow you to label it as an active ingredient. So it's stuffed into the inactive ingredients, which means you can't even learn what the concentration is. And it's just not intuitive to consumers. So we've got stuff like that kind of holding us back. And I just want to mention, I know this has come up a little bit before, but for those of you that aren't the kind of ingredient hawks looking a lot at the labels, I would encourage you to get more into that, even if only on the basis that you may be able to save yourself some money as you're trying different things. If you look across products at what some of those ingredients are, especially the main ones, you can save yourself the trouble sometimes of not trying something that's maybe under a different brand, but it's actually more or less the same thing. So we have that resource. Aiden, is it at the top of the chat?
So yeah, the very first link is for a page that has 2 downloadable versions, and then I just sent a link to the PDF a couple minutes ago.
PDF of, talking about the ingredient.
Oh, sorry. The ingredients, yeah, that's the top one at the chat.
So what you can do on that page with the ingredients, you can like find the brand you usually use, look at the ingredients on it, and then search the page for other ones that have that same thing. So if you want to try something new and different, rather than just kind of standing in front of all the shelves in the drugstore and picking something that looks flashy and new, find something that's just got a really different thing in it. There's also some aids on that page to help identify some things. There's any preservatives are highlighted in pink, really bad preservatives are highlighted in red, oils, I think, are highlighted in, I forget, green or blue. And the, I think we've got the sodium hyaluronate highlighted on those too, just to make the page more useful. So anyway, for selecting drops, that may be a helpful tool. All right, so then how do we figure out how and when do we figure out how to quit a drop? Is it we try it a few times and gosh, that doesn't feel so great, so there it goes into the reject drawer? Or do we get more methodical? And this is where this thing that Mandy worked up is so awesome, because it's a tool that can help us be methodical about what we're experiencing with a new drop, record our observations. Because the truth is, with dry eye in general of any kind, we have ups and downs. And the same thing doesn't feel the same way today as it will tomorrow or next week or in the middle of allergy season or in the middle of the winter. Things feel different at different times. They may feel differently if you put it in at 7 in the morning than at 7 in the evening. So getting methodical about how we measure and track how a drop is doing for us, I think is absolutely worth it with over-the-counter drops. There's kind of a tendency at the end of the day to say, oh gosh, they're all alike. It's just wet stuff, right? But for a lot of us, that's not really the case if we, really start paying attention to it. So Nancy, you've been through masses of different drops. What's the thing that makes you most quickly decide to dump a drop?
I really can't say for sure what makes me drop one as much as, because I'm kind of frugal in some sense. I try not to buy too many of one thing at first, buy the smaller version of it or the smaller packaging. And then I'm so cheap, I'll use it till the end. So then I just won't buy that one again. But I seem to always go back to the Refresh brand. I just do. Although I do like that one from Germany, but I can't get it here. So,
do you know what it is about the CMC or the Refresh Plus or whichever that was? Is it that it's thinner or that it's thicker or that it's smoother or that it's...
Yeah, the Refresh Plus feels good. I really like that one. There's Celluvisc. I've used that forever at night, but I don't like the crustiness of it.
Can you prevent the crusties with like wet washcloth? Wipe it off after you put them in?
Oh, I never tried that. Someone made a comment the other day. No, I think this was about using an ointment to put a lubricating drop in and then put the ointment in. And I tried that, and that did seem to make it a little bit better. But I might try what Mark does and just put it over the eyelid before I go to bed, and then, put the mask on. But yeah, no, the Celluvis just feels good, but it does get crusty at night. And I have a tendency not to close my right eye 100%. It's like a millimeter open, just enough to dry out any drops I put in there too, which is hard on my cornea.
My understanding is the drops that have a really high concentration of polymers, and the CMC is a polymer, right? They will crystallize on your lids and lashes. And way back in the day, I don't know if there's anybody listening in that remembers Dwell and Dacrina. This is kind of in the pre-Fresh Coat days, way back when. That was always an issue with those, and they were expensive drops. And so, but they worked really super well. But we learned then to, we'd put a drop in and then use a tissue to just blot any excess, because otherwise we got the white crusties all over our lashes. And yeah, when you're using that stuff like overnight and then it just collects in the corners of your eyes, nobody wants it. And then you get bits of it in your eye. It's just really uncomfortable. So definitely some cleanup there. Yeah, Mandy.
Sorry, I have something to say that I have tried to wipe it off with a Kleenex and it doesn't work for me. I still have stuff remaining. But one of the things, I don't know why these things occur 24 years later, let's try this. So I've been thinking of putting the drop in first and then rubbing the oil, the ointment, the Retain PM over it. And I'm going to try that tonight and I'll report back. But
interesting. Yeah.
So I was using the Retain and just putting the Refresh in after. I might try to put the Refresh Plus, and then I might try to put the Refresh Celluvisc in first and then rub that over to see if that does a better job of not making it stick to the
Yeah. It
eyelids
does
and lashes.
as crusty. It's
Yeah.
the best. And then what I do in the morning when it gets crusty like that, I just use an eye wipe and just gently wipe down on my eye, because I have to be careful not to rub too much.
I know, I
Yeah.
can't wait to see how many wrinkles my eyes are going to have beyond what they naturally would, like later.
Yeah.
Wanted to circle back to you, Mark, and I know you're more focused maybe on the prescription drops, but I'd love to hear an example for you of an over-the-counter drop that you tried and that wasn't working out, and why.
Well, I'm just the opposite, if you don't mind. I'm sitting here looking at my Adipac. It's a sterile sodium chloride salt solution for your eye. And I've used it for my squirrel lenses. Now I've been using it off and on just to rinse my eye out and get rid of the dry, gritty, and then maybe put in some of the CM, whatever it is. I find this is very, very good for just washing your eye out and get rid of it, the crusties, or hydrating your eyes. So I really like this stuff, and it's not that expensive. It comes in the vials. It is sterile. So, well, what was your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you got us onto a great topic. Preservative-free sterile salines in these unit dose things. I mean, that's what I got. This is Naturefill. It's just, a fancy version of it. The one you were holding up, it's labeled for respiratory therapy, not eyes, but it's used very commonly to fill scleral lenses. I didn't even have like eye washes on the list of stuff to talk about today, but I'm so glad this came up because it's an issue, especially when we're putting all kinds of stuff in our eyes, on our eyelids, whatever. We need to be able to wash stuff out. And honestly, the products that are labeled as eye washes are almost always preserved.
Right.
But preservative-free salines are a great way to rinse stuff out. And they're not great eye drops, as in they don't have any lubricating properties, they don't have any staying power, but for those of us especially that don't really tolerate thicker stuff in our eyes well, they sure feel good too. I use this just kind of to put once in a while to kind of put a little bit of wetness over my scleral lenses, sharpen up my vision in the moment when I need to, or when they're out, first thing in the morning or end of the day, rinsing out the eye with saline. That's great. So I don't know if we, I don't, maybe Aiden, you could type some of the brands of that, the preservative-free salines, into the chat.
So I use those a lot, Mark. I have a cat and a dog that shed like crazy, and I feel like because I do not have enough water production, I get hair stuck to my eyes so much. And so I used to always fish for it, with my finger, which, clearly probably isn't recommended. I've done a lot of things that probably aren't recommended, but I have found that rinsing it will get it to the corner. I may have to use 3 or 4 of them sometimes, but then I can finally see it. I also invested in a cheap, but I might get a better one now because I think it's working. LED lit magnifying mirror so that I can see what might be in my eye better, so I'm not doing things that might harm my eye. But the Adipac and Magidos are 2 that I definitely go to rinse, and I think it's really helpful. And allergies, I've heard people that use that to rinse out their eyes in the morning with allergies.
Yep.
That's an idea.
All right. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Another topic, how do you put drops in? Do you pull your eyelid down or do you go like that? I kind of do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, tilt my head back. Yeah. Tilt my head back.
I pull my bottom lid down and put them in, and then I try, although I'm not very good at it because I am always need to be doing something and on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
I try to keep my eyes closed for a little while and roll my eyeballs around and, try to get it covered, but I don't always do it. So, and I don't know how well that actually works since your eyes are closed, but I try to get it in the pocket and keep it in there. With Regenerize, they said you're supposed to lift the top lid, but like the instruction packet did, and I'm like, I've never done that. I'm not doing it.
No, I missed that part totally. That it burns for a second. I just keep my eye closed for about a minute, 30 seconds for sure.
I told
Well, my eye doc, go ahead, I'm sorry. My eye doctor told me that when you put drops in, look down at the floor and it keeps the liquid on your eye instead of draining out the sides. You can do that for a full second to get the full effect. Another little trick.
That's so interesting. You'd think it would be the opposite.
Wow. One of the tips I learned way back in the day too was how much liquid the surface of your eye can actually hold. And they say basically a third of a drop, the rest is going to drain anyway. So unless you just feel good splashing lots around, which is perfectly valid, and I definitely do that with the saline, with the drops that are expensive, you can conserve, you can put a pretty darn small drop in there and get the full effect of it, because like I said, there's just kind of limited capacity there. Another application process would be using there's a lot of little guides and stuff on the market. What's it called? Simply Touch is a little kind of plastic applicator thing. You put a drop on it and then you hold that to your wand, and you just touch the drop to your eye, and it transfers. And for some people, those are really good. If you've got like, I don't know, tremor or something and you can't get it in, and those are particularly helpful for people with prescription drops that are really expensive to kind of conserve on them too. Okay, gonna get to the allergy and redness reliever in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about doctors and drops. And I would like to know what your experiences are with the role your doctors do or don't play in advice about over-the-counter drops. Is this something they give you advice on? Is this something they tell you do's and don'ts? Is this something they say, gosh, pick a fancy color? What's your experience of how interested your eye doctors are in this? Nancy, go ahead.
It's really funny. I should go get it. He writes out a chart every time I go, and he's got it. And he's definitely a big refresh person. Definitely. But I have to, when I want to try something new, I have to really go at him, because I don't know whether he just is so busy. Sometimes he's in and out of the room and so quick that, so I have to go to his girls and go, oh, look, I really want to try this. Can you get him to give me this or let me try this? But yeah, he's my eye doctor, my cornea guy here is a big refresh person. He's big on
samples of other things, though. It sounds like he's
no, the only thing he's ever given me samples of is the refresh products for whatever reason.
I kind of the drops that the doctors
Good allergen rep.
Yeah.
Well, they have a bigger sampling program, I think, than anybody else too. That's like the biggest marketing cost for any of these companies is the samples that they have to give to doctors, and some companies can afford more of that than others too. So it does limit what goes.
Well, they don't offer them up to me. I have to ask.
And
I've learned I'm paying good money to this man. Give me the samples.
Sometimes there's a really good reason for that, because a lot of doctors, doctors who really know their patient base really well, if they're serving like underserved populations, they are hoarding those samples for the patients that can't afford to buy stuff too. So they have those deep in a drawer where they're saving for so-and-so who's going to come in. So yeah, sometimes we can't get them because they're reserved for others, but it's always good to ask, get anything that you can, because it really does save on the kind of ongoing cost of things. Mark, what's been your experience with your doctors and over-the-counter drops?
Lately, my doctors ask me what's recommended, and then they give me the head nod. They love the CMC. They have really good experience with it, and they recommend it. So they don't really have to give out samples because it's not that expensive over the counter wise. So yeah, they love the carboxyl nickel cellulose sodium. And they say stay tuned for the hyaluronate derivatives starting to come on the market, because that chemical absorbs 1,000 times its molecular weight in water. And once the eye drop companies get in on that, I'm looking forward to that.
That's that one, wasn't it you that showed that one, the Refresh Relieva? That's what that has. It says sodium hyaluronate, but it's hyaluronic acid.
Yes,
this one. Yeah.
it's good sunburn cream too. It is. It's good skin cream, face cream. You'll see all the women commercials for skin cream and face cream advertising hyaluronic acid
Seen a
and
lot
not
of-
retin cream anymore. So
I feel like CMC is like one of the most universally tolerated things, you know? Not necessarily the longest lasting, but just the most, for many people, the most comfortable. So it's interesting to hear that from all of you now. Wow. Mandy, doctors and OTC drops, anything more to add?
Not really.
Okay.
Don't really get a whole lot of stuff. My eye doctor will be like, oh, tell me what's new. Cause you know, I mean, she does a lot of, I mean, cataract is her, I mean, she is a corneal specialist and she's not really always focusing on dry eye. I mean, I do have my doctor in Minneapolis who talks to me about stuff, but he's also like, well, you've tried everything, you know, like, you know, what works for you and what doesn't. She's just always like, tell me what's new with the dry eye foundation. What are you looking at? You know, what's on the market? What's in the pipeline? And so she doesn't really give me anything. I think she just expects me to have tried it and read about it. And so
You are known to know this stuff. That's the problem. They know how much experience you got. It's awesome. Okay. All right. How much are we spending? And I'm seeing that there's a lot going on in chat and Q&A, and I'm sorry, there's some of that I'm not able to get to right now. I'll circle back in a little bit. But anybody who is attending, if you want to just pop in your number of how much you're spending a month on over-the-counter drops, I'd love to see those as well. Nancy, can you ballpark your monthly spend?
No, isn't that awful? I figure if you need it, you buy it. And I just, isn't that awful? I don't want to even think about what I spend on eye drops. So I don't,
Mark?
$15 to $20 a month
you know,
on my favorites. Yeah.
Reasonable.
you know.
Mandy?
I was trying to fix something that I typed terribly to everyone because I wasn't looking at the box. So way too much probably. On the months that I'm not trying anything else out, probably like the $20 a month because I'll get my 30, well, this is probably like $15 on Amazon. Sorry, Rebecca. I got to get on your free mailing program. The $99 like Amazon. Anyway, and then I'll get the 100 vials of Refresh Plus and then get my stuff for at night, which will last a couple months.
Yeah, I buy mine at Sam's Club.
Yeah, it's like $18 at Costco or something for that. Again, sorry, Rebecca. Bye from Rebecca. Stop listening to me.
No. Not here today.
Anyway, but then when I'm trying new things such as Regenerize, which is a ridiculous amount of money per month for the really strong stuff, I mean, I could go through thousands of dollars in a year. And it has changed my priorities in life. I shop at Goodwill. Like I save my money to like travel and spend it on my eyes. And so that's what I do. And it is a real money problem, this disease.
Yeah.
There's a lot of out-of-pocket spend. And when you get into those of us that wear scleral lenses, there's a lot for that than any of the lid care and all of the things that just aren't covered by insurance. There's just a spendy disease for sure. Okay, I'm just looking through our other questions because I want to get to the questions people are posting pretty shortly. I think I'll go straight to, well, no, we said we'd get into allergy and redness reliever. Anybody want to share anything about allergy drops that they're using or how they're addressing ocular allergy or how their seasonal allergies are affecting their eyes and what they do about it?
No, I'm looking for answers.
Yeah.
I want to know if anyone's tried, or if it's out on the market, Rebecca. It's in your your drug pipeline list, the aloe preservative free.
Yeah, it's there. It's out.
Has anyone tried that out there? And do you think, Rebecca, that would be less drying?
Less drying.
Well, a lot of people say that allergy drops cause more burning and make their eyes dry out more in general. Is the preservative free supposed to help with that aspect of it, but still address the allergy?
Only to the extent that so there's two pieces that can be drying, right? There's the antihistamine and there's the preservative. So with the preservative free version, you're whittling it down to one issue, which is the antihistamine. And can that be drying? Yes. So, I mean, my rule of thumb over the years has always been, if you're going to use an allergy drop, use something that's a once a day dosing so that you've got less exposure to all of that, to the preservatives.
I use loratadine every day and Flonase.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the first few days, the Flonase was really bothering me. I use loratadine year round, like a 10 milligram every day. Just, and then in the spring, I started using the Flonase again. And the first few days I was like, oh, my eyes are really dry. But as I used it a little bit more, it didn't really seem to be making any difference in the normal dryness that I feel.
Yeah.
So Beth has posted in the chat saying she's been using aloe PF for a couple weeks and doesn't notice much difference from pad a day. I'm wondering, Beth, if you mean, do both of them work equally for you? Therefore, the aloe PF is a better option because it doesn't have the preservative in it? Just curious about. Wasn't quite sure how to understand that. Okay, anything else anybody wants to share on the allergy front?
Yeah, I've always learned that antihistamines are dry eye culprits, so I try to stay away from them.
Yeah.
It's just tough with places. Some people live into severity of some people's allergies. For some people, they can be really super hard to avoid. So Beth's responded, I think so. Jury's still out. All right, Beth, I hope that goes well. I'm dying to know somebody who's actually having a good experience with aloe PF because it's so new. I just haven't really had feedback.
Where do you buy it? I've never even heard of it.
Should be in any drugstore at this point. So aloe is a prescription drop. They just recently brought out this preservative-free version. It's a prescription?
It's a prescription?
It's over the counter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's an eye drop?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the first preservative-free allergy eye drop in the US.
Okay.
Even if it's
I'll look for it.
Wouldn't have ever thought of aloe as, big fireworks. This is a big deal, allergy drop, but the fact that it's preservative free is a pretty big deal. Okay, briefly, redness relievers. That's your area, Mark, because you're the only one I'm hearing talk about redness relievers. And I know we can't get into the kind of using the into the prescription side of it now, but for stuff that over the counter that you've used, anything you want to share?
You can't beat Lumify. Yeah, you can't beat it. Its prescription alternative is much stronger and it creates rebound redness, but the Lumify is a lot weaker and it does get rid of redness guaranteed for some period of time.
Doesn't it have a preservative in it?
Yeah, it's got benzalkonium chloride. So there's a lot of people for whom that's going to be a deal breaker because benzalkonium chloride does cause and exacerbate dry eye, but redness is a serious challenge for a lot of people, and just kind of saying no redness relievers at all is, we come back to the quality of life and the trade-offs and all of that. And Lumify was a really big step forward in the redness reliever world because it doesn't have that redness rebound effect. I've talked to a ton of people who use Lumify either regularly or sporadically since that came out. And, like anything, it's not going to work for everyone. But there are many people for whom it does a good job, especially just to have something in reserve. You got a special occasion, you're attending a wedding, I don't know what. It's one of those things you can kind of have in the back pocket for those the special occasions. With the other redness relievers, you get this double whammy of bad preservative and the redness reliever itself that can cause the rebound redness thing. And together, you know, anything, when you're using it now and then, that's one thing. When you're using it every day over time and you're getting that chronic exposure, that's when it can worsen things. I think from my perspective, there's a lot to be desired in the labeling of products like this online, because basically any eye drop that you can buy in the drugstore is going to say something like, if your condition persists or worsens after 72 hours of use, discontinue and talk to your doctor. I mean, even artificial tears, the perfectly harmless ones, are going to say that. So do the redness relievers with the strongest concentrations and worst preservatives. How are we to know that one is higher risk to overuse than another? So that's an area I would really like to see improve in the regulatory world, is put better warnings on things so that we know, I don't know quite how to put this, which ones are safe to abuse and which ones are not safe to abuse, if I can describe it that way. Okay, last thing for the group here before we go on to some questions from everyone else is, what's the most important advice you feel you could give someone else about choosing and using over-the-counter drops? What words of wisdom can you leave us with today? Anybody like to go first?
Well, for me, making sure I pick the preservative free. For a long time, when I first came down with this, I didn't know enough about picking preservative free, but now I do. And so I'm very careful about making sure that anything I buy over the counter definitely has preservative free. And even when I'm in Europe, I always ask the pharmacist, does it have preservatives? And sometimes when they're not sure, they'll look it up for me or read the list. And so I'm very careful about that. That's pretty much about it for me.
That's awesome. And I've had the question in the past sometimes from people, how do I know if it's preservative free? Well, can't speak to Europe, haven't been for a little while, but in the US, if it's preservative free, it will most definitely say so on the front package.
Yeah, you might have to really dig for it to look for it on the box, but it will say it.
It should be on the front. I mean, it might be, small print, whatever, but it will be there.
Yeah.
Mark, what can you share with us?
I'm in complete agreement with Nancy on preservative free. Over the years, I didn't even know that existed until lately, and I agree. Preservative free is the way to go. And you have to look, because a lot of them, most of them aren't preservative free.
Right.
Big issue.
Interestingly, it used to be, we used to have an easier rule of thumb. If it was bottled, it had a preservative, period. Mm. But that's no longer the case, because we got some of these new preservative-free multi-dose, like the one you were showing earlier with the flat tops. So yeah, we have to hunt and look on the box. Mandy. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, even my I've had him for about a year now. My cornea specialist that I'm using now is very big on making sure, he reiterates all the time, make sure it's preservative free. And none of my other eye doctors have ever done that.
It is really interesting. There's a pretty broad spectrum, because the rule of thumb has tended to be in ophthalmology over the years, you can use preserved ones up to maybe 4 times a day. More than that, go preservative free. But for people with dry eye, and amongst the specialists, I think the advice has been much more strongly, stick with preservative free across the board if you can. Yeah. All right, Mandy, what's your last best advice? 3
things. Preservative free, look at Rebecca's list of ingredients and start using the chart that we're making and going to make available.
All right, I want to loudly second that with Mandy's chart. Do we have a link to that up there into? Great.
I'll send it again, yeah.
I'll get that in our next email blast too. So I appreciate all the work that you put into that, and I'll be really interested to see what people do with that and what they learn from it and where they go. All right, gonna circle back to everyone a sec here. I want to go through where we're at with questions. Let's see. Mark is asking, what might be the over-the-counter equivalent to Sequa and a less expensive over-the-counter alternative for fresh coats? Okay, well, Sequa out of luck. So that's cyclosporin, and there is no over-the-counter cyclosporin, not here, not anywhere that I know of. A less expensive over-the-counter alternative for fresh coat. Fresh coat is unique. It is a unique combination of polymers in grades that aren't used in other over-the-counter drops. So there isn't a close equivalent that you could look to. I sure wish there was. I would be recommending it left and right because fresh coat is expensive. I think my best personal advice with fresh coat is if it works well for someone, minimizing the drop size, like I said, really can save. I know there was a lot of unhappiness when fresh coat switched from the 15 ml bottle to the 10 ml preservative-free bottle, because fresh coat was actually preserved for years, but it was also a unique preservative that had a really super low toxicity rate. So it was well tolerated for a long time. So we went down to the preservative-free in a smaller bottle, and and it became more expensive. So it's just been a hard combination. But that Simply Touch device that I mentioned earlier can also help sometimes with just getting a really small drop in each eye. So it might be something to look up. You can kind of see there's like a video somewhere online about it. I think the company is Simply Touch USA. Okay, let's see. Then Ray is asking, if you've had in-depth tests like osmolarity, does that predict which drops will work best for your eyes? That is such a good question, and I have no idea what the answer is. I'm going to save that up for, I think what we've been talking about. We may have a time when we bring a doctor in for another type of session, and it would be really fun to tackle things like that. It's really interesting to me. It's one of the reasons I was asking everyone how their doctors relate to this. Some doctors really get into the science of over-the-counter tears. Other doctors really do lump them all together, and it's basically whatever feels good, do that. And I'm not sure that there's a right or wrong way to go at it. There's different philosophies, and they're going to bring to the table what they do. Let's see. Patricia, can you use the vials a few hours later? I always thought I had to throw them away after I used them, even if there was enough for another few drops per eye. So this is one of those sensitive questions where it's like, you're supposed to say, well, the instructions say this, so do that. But the reality is most people using preservative-free vials stretch them out and reuse them because the economics of those things are awful and the waste is bad as well. Checking with your doctor is a good thing because they will have their opinions about what's safest and best to do. I know an awful lot of doctors that have no problem with people stretching it out throughout the day in a preservative-free vial. I think the thing that they would be most concerned about is you got to keep that vial safe. You're not carrying that around in your pocket. You're not necessarily even wrapping it in plastic wrap, right? You need to keep it clean and safe, because the whole reason for preservatives is because things get contaminated, right?
Right.
So some of them are recapable. Some of us will take like a shot glass and stick a vial upright in it, maybe put a glass over that, find a way that you can keep it clean. I don't necessarily recommend leaving it just lying there on your bathroom counter with nothing over it. Or just, throwing an open vial in your purse or whatever. Just find a way to keep it clean. Then using it, my personal rule of thumb is I use it up within the day and I keep it clean.
Right. Then throw it away. Yeah.
Okay, Anne is asking, what are some good drops I might be able to get in Spain? Wow, that's a great one. I have no idea personally. They have a trip.
They might could get that.
The traveler amongst us.
Yeah, they might could get this in Spain. I haven't tried it because I got mine in Germany because that seems to be where I go the most.
I kind of think that one's all over Europe now, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure specifically about Spain.
But this is a good one. I would keep it in my smock pocket, and it's and I would use it on the airplane all day long. And so that's a good one that I got in Germany. So
Great.
Wow.
Can I ask Nancy what you really like about the Evo tiers compared to others that you're using?
I think the oiliness of it just feels really good on your eye, and it's a small bottle, you know. And this one's not open yet. It's a small bottle. It's preservative free, and it just feels really good. I mean, better than a lot of the ones I've used here in the United States. But I don't know when I'll get back to Germany to get more.
I'm just realizing one thing that never came up at all thus far today is refrigeration and just cold drops. So a lot of people, that can be really, really soothing too.
Well, yeah. I don't find cold drops necessary so much for the over the counter as much as I do like the Sequa and Regenerize and that sort of thing. The serum tiers, obviously, you have to keep refrigerated. One thing I was liking about the Regenerize is even though it's not prescription, insurance won't cover it, they had the lesser dose that does not have to be refrigerated. So when I have to be out for a day and I want to use it, I use that.
Yeah, trying to stay away from the prescription ones at the moment, stick with the OTC. And one other thing, if you need more sources for some suggestions of things you can get in Spain, maybe one of the Facebook dry eye groups, there's bound to be people that will know there. Linda is asking, how do preservative-free drops stay uncontaminated when in multi-dose bottles? Right, so there's conventional drop bottles, you squeeze it, it drips out. There's multi-dose preservative-free bottles, which have a higher technology vacuum seal in them to where you squeeze it out and it doesn't suck air back in the same way that a conventional bottle would. Yep, there we go. Mark's holding one up. They're flat tops. At least that's one type of it. That's the type that's most commonly available here. Mandy, do you happen to have the HPMC handy?
Nancy does.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't have it right.
That's another style of, thanks Nancy, it's another style of preservative-free multi-dose bottle. The thing on the bottom of it where she's holding it is a pump. That's how you pump it out versus the one that Mark has. You're squeezing the bottle the way you normally would, but you have
I've got
to
that
prime
too.
it. And one of the complaints that I hear from people about the style of bottle that Mark was holding, which is the most common one, I don't know if it's also true on the HPMC, is just the bottles are stiffer. So if you've got a little bit of arthritis or something, it can just be harder or more painful.
When I started using this type of pump, because my first introduction to this type of pump was in London, it was I was so afraid I was going to hit my cornea because it was hard to pump and get it in. So this one is not my favorite in terms of pumping because I'm scared I'm going to hit my eye.
Got it.
Mark's the one Mark has. I have that one too. It's probably in my purse. That one's not as bad.
I would
you can
agree
squeeze.
from a safety standpoint, not touching anything. Those flat top bottles are good for that.
Yeah.
I'm one of the kind of long-term scleral lens wearers where I come to kind of feel impervious to any of those things because I got the scleral lens over my eye. Even if I touch the thing to that, nothing's touching my eye. But that's a common way to get something contaminated, touching your eye, touching your lashes with those. And that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, Ray.
I have another question from someone while we're on the European drops. Someone's saying they found Evo tiers on Amazon for $33.99. That's
Really?
reasonable.
I've never seen them on Amazon, but I haven't looked for them there either. So
Yeah.
For those that don't know, that's the way people squeak in spite of the FDA rules and regulations about it, because those ones that are sold on Amazon and eBay and nowhere else, they're ones that aren't compliant with the FDA's, what they call a monograph for over-the-counter lubricants. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. They have a lot of really good drops going in Europe, and there's some that come up from like Australia and New Zealand as well that way, that people are able to get that way. Okay, Ray is asking, if a drop really burns, even if it's supposed to be good for you, does that mean you should just tolerate it, or does it indicate it's doing some damage and you should stop? This is such a great question. And I know I'm out of my league talking about that with the prescription drops. I would say it's a good conversation to have with the doctor about what can and can't actually cause harm. So for example, drops that have a high concentration of a polymer, that's Fresh Coat, and for some people, Refresh Celluvisc as well. Those will burn on a dry cornea. So if you use like one of the thin CFC drops, like Refresh Plus or TheraTears or something, a little while before it to kind of buffer it, it may really change how those feel when they go in. So burning can be just the polymer concentration, which is not harming you, but it can be very uncomfortable. Burning can be, are you super sensitive to an ingredient? Do you have an allergy to something? I don't know. Burning is a known side effect of some of the prescription dry eye drugs for sure. And for some people, it's a manageable burn, as in, you know, it's going to feel a certain way for 5 or 10 minutes and then you get over it. For other people, it's a burn that increases throughout the day and it becomes a serious issue, and a conversation with the doctor about, oh man, I need to stop. But I think the burning is an important thing to get into a really good conversation with the doctor about. And if it doesn't seem like something they want to spend much time on, jump up and down and wave your hands and get their attention for it. Is it sending an email or something before the appointment and say, you know what, I really feel like I need some guidance. I want to get to the bottom of this topic. Right. Okay, Ray, again, I had to, I think it'd be quit using Genteel gel, and I always assumed it was the CMC, but it caused the thin skin under my eyes to swell and peel. I used it for years. It became a problem. Has anyone else experienced that? Tommy had to, and I know this has come up in a few contexts. Genteel gel is preserved with sodium perborate, or it goes under, I forget what the brand name is of that preservative when it's in Genteel, but it's what's called a dissipating or disappearing preservative. It's supposed to be preservative free in the eye, or on contact with the eye, it dissipates. But there's definitely people out there that have or develop sensitivities to it. This has come up a number of times in the groups and at the meetings lately. So if somebody's starting to have issues when you're using that, again, worth a chat with the doctor. One of the problems with side effects from stuff, I think, is that it can so easily get conflated with actual symptoms. When your eyes are doing bad and they're really uncomfortable anyway, do you even notice when something new is creeping in? These things can kind of build up, and then, yeah, is it the active ingredient? Is it, there's other ingredients in drops that are just there to buffer them, change the pH or whatever, and there can be culprits that are easy to miss. And let's see, Linda, which drop with, whoops, where'd we go? Which drop with hyaluronic acid is preservative free? I'm trying to think of any that aren't. So Oasis makes a preserved one and preservative free ones that there's Oasis Tears, there's Oasis Tears Plus. This is a good thing to use our chart on that first link in the chat for, because you can search the page, but with hyaluronic acid, you want to look for, I would just type HYA, oh, how am I spelling this? Just the first few letters, because it could be listed as hyaluronic acid or it could be listed as sodium hyaluronate. There's different ways to find it on there. So there's Oasis, there's, what do you call it? Refresh Relieva. There's, whoa, what's the Sustain one? Do you remember Sustain Hydration? Yep. I think. Yeah. Those are the main ones in the US. Optase, thank you.
Yeah, Optase Intense.
That's a new entrance. That's a European one that's now on the US market. And let's see. Elizabeth, I'm not sure there's a question here, but just going to read what she's sharing. 20 years ago, I had bleph surgery, which tightened up my upper lids like windshield wipers and also left one eye slightly open. Happens so much with lid surgeries. No moisture stays in my eyes all night, so I wake up 2 to 3 times to apply drops. Otherwise, my lid seems to stick to my eyeball. Painful to open eyes to apply more drops. Ointments, gels, drops, all don't stay on my eyes. Best luck with Fresh Coat and Sustain and Onyx goggles, but would like something to last all night. No need for daytime drops at all. I do have plugs. Right. Just thinking of anything to share there. That combination of finding an effective lubricant plus a goggle or some kind of shield overnight is sometimes what it takes. But I'm guessing the question is kind of, is there some lubricant that could last all night? I think a question I have for myself reading that is, if there's no need for daytime drops, I'm wondering if overnight, is it all about like evaporation and dryness, or are there any maybe erosions going on where something like,
I don't mean to interrupt, but if her eye, because I experience that almost every night. If her eye is open even a millimeter, it dries out, and no matter how many eye shields you wear, I've bought the eye tape, tape it shut. I've done everything. But if you don't put enough ointment in, it's gonna hurt.
So Mandy was just suggesting, Miro 128. It's actually a hypertonic ointment, and it's for corneal edema, but for people who are prone to like erosions overnight, and even just as an alternative lubricant, I think a fair number of people use that. So that might be worth trying. It's an over-the-counter thing, or having a conversation with a doctor about it, ideally.
Yeah, my doctor doesn't recommend Miro 128.
In general, or for you?
Yeah, I think it's more for people who have semi-different eye condition than us, right, Rebecca?
There's a lot of overlap. So, I mean, it's, like I said, it's technically for corneal edema, but for people who have recurrent corneal erosions overnight, or mapped out fingerprint dystrophy, it's used for that specifically. But I do know quite a lot of people who use it just as another lubricant. I don't understand that, because I don't know why the hypertonicity would help for people with dry eye, but I just know that that's done. Otherwise, it's, classic ointment, petrolatum, and mineral oil. Tommy's asking, my genteel individual eye drops has a snug fit, so I think they should be safe for a couple of days. Oh, I'm gonna have to punt on that one. If it's going over the 24 hours, I would just check with the doctor. If they're happy with you doing that, then should be fine. I just don't know. I don't know the science of it, of how safe those are and for how long. Okay, I'm looking in the chat window now for anything I might have missed.
I was just looking, I think we got most of it. I mean, we could read some of the things that people said out loud. And with that EvoTears question, the question, which I didn't read close enough, was, is it worth $35?
My personal answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So you think everything we've
Yeah, I'll read a few things, and just on the, is this drop going to be worth it? Make sure you're trying, like Mandy said, with the spreadsheet and going down the list and giving everything a fair chance. Let's see.
I mean, honestly, I don't think you know until you try it, right? So some people, yes, some people, no. Some people would say, no, it's not worth it at all. I would never buy that again. But like Nancy's saying, yeah, she thinks it's worth it. So
yeah.
To me, I think with all dry eye treatments and these over-the-counter drops, nothing works for everyone and everything works for someone, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing to be ruled out. There are a number of products that are not new and not popular, but boy, do they have a really faithful following. Bion Tears, that's been around for donkey's years. There are some people for whom nothing else works, right? It's just a lot of variability in what people tolerate and not. One last kind of product class I'm realizing I left off, and this is technically prescription, but because its only purpose is a lubricant, I'm going to mention it anyway, and that is Lacrosert. I didn't even think of that when we first started. Those are those weird little pellet things that you can put into the lower part of your eyelid, and it's like a slow release artificial tear. And they're one of those things that's been out there for decades. And every now and then they get sold from one company to another, and they go on back order for a year and a half. And we've been in a really long stretch like that just recently. But that's one of those other things. Sometimes when people find I'm trying everything, none of these work, it can be worth trying the things that are kind of the less traveled paths. Okay.
And Rebecca, you and I have talked about this, and it's like my stepkids love Marmite, and when you go to the website, it's like love it, hate it. And Lacrosert, I feel I hate it. I hate the feeling it puts on my eyes, but you have said there are some devoted followers that absolutely love it. So prime example of love it, hate it. If it works for you, great. If not.
And guess what the Lacrosert? Guess what the lubricant is?
What?
What's your favorite thing?
CMC. No way. But I think it's like the way it releases it, it feels super sticky. Granted, I haven't tried it since like 2002. But so that's another thing. Should I go back and try it again? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with CMC. Just saying.
That's what's in the Refresh Plus, right?
That was the thing we were trying to pronounce earlier, the carboxymethyl cellulose, the common type form of lubricant.
All right. I'm afraid I'm not up on all the ingredients like I should be.
All right, so it is about 4:30. I'm thinking now, first of all, I just want to thank our panel, Mandy, Mark, Nancy, a million for being here and being part of this. This was really important to me. I really appreciate everything you all have shared. I'm thinking could we take a little time, Aiden, to just see if anybody else wants to jump in and chat, because we usually do that. I know we're running late on time, but this was a really popular topic, so I do want to give people a chance. If you want to see if there's others that want to come in, panelists, if you want to stay around for that, fantastic. If you need to go, totally understand, because I know we're running over our estimated time, so totally up to you. But again, just great big thanks. I'm going to run through.
Sorry, Rebecca, I have to go, but everyone donate to the Dry Eye Foundation. Got to put my shout out in. Rebecca and Aiden do so much for us out of the goodness of their heart, not out of the windfall that they're receiving in cash. So they provide a lot of resources for us. So I think we should thank them.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Hope I was a little bit helpful, and have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
Bye. I think Mark's already out. Sorry, I missed his.
Thanks, Mark. We had a couple questions in the chat for anyone.
Yeah, I'm just back on those. So Beth is asking, how common is it to be sensitive to either white petrolatum or mineral oil? I think I found a correlation with nighttime ointments and eyelid irritation, so I'm trying to figure out which of these ingredients might be the culprit. Rebecca's mentioned lanolin, but I think she said Soothe PM does not have lanolin, and that also might be irritating. Also, an antibiotic ointment I used irritated, and it has both white petrolatum and mineral oil. This is a hard area where it's like trial and error might be the only way to figure it out. There's a page somewhere, I might need to help me out, Aiden. Where's a page we had where we broke down all of the ingredient concentrations on the ointments? It might just be the old blog thing on Refresh PM that we had going forever. I'm not sure where that is.
I can maybe copy and paste it in.
So the thing with, lanolin, yes, lanolin alcohol is in all of the lubricating ointments except Soothe PM and Retain PM, which is basically a knockoff of Soothe. So for those that have wool allergy or something, you definitely want to avoid the lanolin ones. Then the petrolatum and mineral oil are the only real ingredients in ointments, but they differ a lot in proportion. So one of the reasons that Refresh PM which was the one that was off the market for a couple of years, was so, or is so popular is because it's relatively balanced. It's pretty close to half and half petrolatum and mineral oil. You get to soothe and retain PM, and it's basically 80-20 petrolatum mineral oil. And then sustain and genteel and the generics, it's like 93%, 4% or something. So it's almost all petrolatum. And to me, it's a great big mystery because I talk to people regularly that think sustain PM is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. They get along with it terrifically. Other people cannot tolerate, clearly can't tolerate that much petrolatum. They have to go with the ones that have more mineral oil. So if it comes down to experimenting, I would, if you're having trouble with one, I would go to one with less petrolatum to see. It can work both ways. I know people, like I said, that like sustain ointment better than refresh PM. It's just trying and figuring it out. Okay, let's see. From an email, someone saying, I have autoimmune disease, which is the cause of my extremely dry eyes. I also have glaucoma. Seems I have a battery of eye drops to take daily, 2 for glaucoma, 2 over-the-counter dry eye drops, all used more than several times daily. I would at least like to limit the dry eye drops I have to take from 2 to 1. I use 2 Refresh brand drops. Are there any preservative-free dry eye drops that have or combine the active ingredients? Okay, I'm getting a little confused. Here's at a good strength and 1 for the oil lubricant. I might have to chew on this. Do we have the email address then for this? Okay, I might need to come back to them on email. I'm not quite getting it, but I think we can figure that. The glaucoma part of it is so hard because glaucoma drops are hard on the eyes and as well. All right, let's see. Anybody? Is this a question here at the end, Aiden, that you just posted?
I forgot to. So trying refresh. Gel seems watery. Haven't tried ointment, CPAP, CPAPs. I was talking to this person over email. It sounds like they're going to try out an ointment. It was kind of,
There was somebody that had been asking why the gel drops didn't seem any thicker. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that was one of the things I was trying to get at the beginning with the different types of drops. There's gel drops and there's gels. Big difference between them. So even without going to a thick ointment, which are the greasy ones, you can get a lot thicker than a gel drop. So the gels are genteel gel and sustain gel. If you wanted to try something thick without getting all the way to an ointment. Let's see. I sleep with a CPAP and a sleep mask nightly as the air from the CPAP was going in my eyes. Really common problem. After going to 2 different eye docs, I am shocked that neither asked about a CPAP on their intake sheet. It seems to be a basic question. Yeah, unfortunately, I think there's an awful lot of people with CPAP masks that can go a year or 2 without getting to the bottom of the problem. I don't know why, when CPAP's been this broadly used for this long, the pulmonary specialists, the sleep disorder people, and the eye doctors really ought to all know by now this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And sometimes it can be addressed adequately with ointments. Sometimes you need a goggle or something else. But I would want to encourage everyone who has experienced that to talk to their doctor about how they can raise awareness. Now that the doctor knows that they've been through that, how can they flag that? Ask their doctor's office to change their intake form. Say, you know what, you guys really need to be screening for that because there are a lot of people that are getting eye problems from their CPAP venting onto their eyes. And it's not something that is necessarily going to come up naturally in the intake process at their offices. So when we get into these things that are just slightly rarer, we all have a role to play in raising awareness. Let's see, we got a couple of people in here. Barbara?
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Barbara.
This has been very interesting. Being that I'm just kind of starting out with the whole investigating the drop issue. I do the refresh. I don't know, they're more of just like a watery kind of a drop. They really don't last long. Looking for something for evening. I do the lubricant, just the Refresh Plus. They don't seem to stay in my eyes at night for long. I wake up, my eyes are dry. I don't think my eye, I know my right one doesn't close right because of the glaucoma. But I don't think the other one closes well either. Anyway, this has just been really, really great. I just appreciate all the information that is provided on these, and it's really, really helpful. I'm just kind of going forward. I took some notes down for my doctor. My doctor is very supportive. She always hands me a whole bunch of samples of all different kinds of products, whatever she has on hand to try, and then she'll go forward and do whatever I feel comfortable with, if there's a prescription. And just some information, I'm going to get out there and start trying some of these gels at night, and see where I go with it. But I just wanted to say again, very, 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 very informative. And you guys do a great job with getting out there and giving information out to all of us who are suffering with this. And it's very helpful. So I just wanted to say that. I think that's all I had right now. Like I said, I'm just going out and trying some of these products and see where I go with it. So thanks again.
Super. Thank you, Barbara. So glad you joined us. I think the thing that you're describing too about needing something different in the evening is a pretty common problem. It's just that progression through the day. You start fresh, a thinner drop may be all that's needed, but things get drier and drier throughout the day with all the environmental stresses on the eyes. And then especially if you've got like lids that aren't closing as well or aren't blinking as well. If anybody wants to like post a suggestion to a better evening drop in the chat, go right ahead. I'd be thinking of one of the kind of higher end ones, or maybe one of the kind of Oasis Tears Plus tends to be one of my go-to recommendations to people. Fresh Coat I would recommend all the time, except that I hate to suggest to people to get something that expensive. But I think of those as longer lasting drops that can do more when your eyes have been under more stress. Anyway, just a thought. Again, yeah, thanks so much for joining. And Ray, welcome back. Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I came to last week's happy hour, and it was really helpful for me to think about glycerin as an ingredient that I might have been sensitive to. And thinking about drops, I always kept I would always buy like the Oasis Tears and Oasis Tears Plus. I bought them several times and I never liked them, but I always thought, well, these are expensive. I should keep them around and I should keep trying them. And then I realized after last week that every time I try them, I was miserable. And so I just finally, I don't care what they cost, I'm throwing them in the trash.
Yep.
And I'm going back to the ones that actually worked for me. And I've felt so much better since I did, but it's so hard to give it up and throw it away when it was so expensive. And you always think, well, I might run out, I might use it, but really you have to face facts.
Right. If it's making you less comfortable rather than more comfortable, then it doesn't have value anymore. It's hard to just toss that money down the drain for sure. And I just so wish that we were able to have drops in the US that had the sodium hyaluronate without the glycerin. For a lot of us, glycerin's fine. There are a lot of people that don't tolerate glycerin well at all. And if it's making your eyes actually worse, then boy, is that ever counterproductive. So good call.
Yeah, and just reflecting on the last person who was talking about nighttime, since I have dry eyes, it's from autoimmune, but I've even found that just something about what happens in my body, even if I take a nap or just fall asleep, let's say I'm sitting on the couch and I doze off for 5 minutes, my eyes will almost instantly be dry from that, and I think nighttime, my eyes just do not produce anything.
Mhm.
Daytime, they do seem to produce a tiny bit, but I don't really know why that is. It's some physiological thing, but
I think when we get into night, as in late evening, like I said, environmental stresses play a big role. but actual overnight, your tear production goes down. So, I mean, blinking is what secreting our tears.
Oh,
and
yeah,
moving
that's
around
true.
all of that. So you're not blinking, therefore you're not producing. And for people who have healthy tears, that's okay. I mean, the blinking that the more limited blinking that they do during sleep is enough for them. But for people with dry eye, the reduction overnight is, can be pretty disastrous. That's why we've got a lot of us have to take a lot of extra steps at night to compensate for what we're losing just in the normal course of sleep, unfortunately. So then it's down to, good prep with the lid care before bed, and then getting the best lubricant we can, and then the goggles and the tapes and the plastic wraps and all of this stuff we'd all really rather not do, but sometimes it's whatever it takes to get from night to morning safely and comfortably. And I know there's a lot of people who relubricate every couple of hours during the night. So certainly, I mean, on my Christmas list, I guess, would be a lubricant that can actually last all night, right? Wouldn't it be nice to have something like that? And unfortunately, the over-the-counter product space in general does not get as much investment and science, certainly not the scientific innovation that we get in the prescription drugs. It's just, they're thought of as palliative. And so they give us some stuff and they wrap it in some fancy marketing, but it doesn't get as high tech as some of the other things. And I'm hopeful that that's changing. Not going to name any names or places, but we've been working a little bit with some folks in Europe that have their eyes on a better, just across the board, a better solution for night dry eye. And they've got some money to work with. They're doing some really interesting research to figure that out. They've got some ideas they're working on that are pretty exciting. So there's hope. There's always more kind of going on out there. Ray, go ahead. See your hand raised.
Does anybody know the only drop that's ever lasted all night long for me is the prescription drop Lotamax gel. And I always wondered, it even has a kind of I think it has back in it, but it's the only drop that actually lasts. And I always wondered, what do they use as the base of that? I don't know if you happen to know the company that makes it, or if you happen to know the answer to that, but that's something I've been curious about for years.
Yeah, that's a good question. One, I'm just looking at it to see, because I thought that was preservative free. I thought that was like one of the few preservative free forms of, I mean, it's a steroid ointment, so not safe as a lubricant, and you got to get your pressures monitored and all that. I mean, it's lotoprednol is the active, and then it's got glycerin in it, propylene glycol.
Go figure.
Some of the other things that are just common stuff in artificial tears, just there to make it comfortable. A couple of these others I don't recognize. That's interesting. I might poke around and find out more about that. All right. Well, wow, we are almost 10 to 5. Aiden, have we wound down as far as anybody else wanting to come in?
Yeah, I don't see anyone. And the last thing, if we could just answer it quickly, if you don't feel like we've answered it so far, that question we had about using drops preventatively versus as needed. Did we get to that? It's been such a long screen.
Oh, I just kind of glanced over it. We didn't really answer it. So the question is, are you kind of keeping up or catching up is one way to put it. Are you using drops before your symptoms get out of hand, or are you addressing symptoms when they arise? Are you using drops reactively or proactively? That's, I don't know, partly philosophical. My personal view would be prevention is good, because I think And this is going to depend what's going on with people medically for sure. So that's another good question, to just have a conversation about that with the eye doctor, because the answer to that might be different for someone with a lot of aqueous deficient dry eye and where they've got maybe reduced corneal sensitivity. Maybe you are not feeling it while it's getting dry. And by the time you're feeling it a lot, there's damage going on the surface of the eye. I mean, not talking about permanent damage sort of stuff, but you're getting dry spots and things. Why not get ahead of that? Keep things lubricated before it gets to that place. If there's like, if you're in these inflammation cycles and things too, there again, doctor's guidance on how important it is it, how frequent do they see the need for lubrication to prevent those things from cycling and ramping up. I know for myself, I tend to not address things until they are screaming at me and grabbing me by the neck. And I can tell you, it's not a good plan. It's better to get ahead of things. So yeah, my vote on that one. I'd love to hear anybody else's thoughts. My vote is prevent all the way.
For me, I try very hard to do it. I'm very good about it when I'm at home, and during lockdown, that's been pretty good. But if I have a day where I'm out running around, I tend to get busy. I don't drink enough water. I don't do drops as frequently as I should. And then I pay for it later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where I love Mandy's approach to moisture chamber goggles all the time, because that can keep some things under better control, even if you slack off of other stuff. It keeps you under better. You're less vulnerable to all the environmental stresses and evaporation.
Well, and I run a humidifier all the time in my house, and that really does make a difference for me anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else out there? And I can't find my Q&A window. Oh, there it went. I think we
gotta get going.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was a really long session today. It was a lot of fun. There's so much to talk about with drops. I know we'll be circling back again. And we had a couple of requests for other things that other topics. And any of you out there that have specific topics that you'd like us to address in one of these panel type sessions where we really kind of wrestle with some issues, please email us anytime or call. So info@dryeyefoundation.org. Aiden's got it in the chat thing, or call our 800 number. And we're starting to kind of get more of these scheduled on specific topics. All right, this was lots of fun. So thank you, everyone. And if you'd like to be in touch or talk to any of us, give us a call. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Hi, everyone.